Honestly, some of the best disc golf I have got to witness in real life, and I am so excited to tell you how this stuff ended because it was electric the whole way through. So with that, let's get into how the Des Moines Challenge ended. Alright, so starting off with FPO, it was so crazy the entire way through. If you are not familiar, the OB lines are so treacherous on nearly every hole. But with that said, the only thing that did feel a little gimmicky was hole 17. And like I mentioned in my previous video, there were 32 OBs in round 1, 16 in round 2, and 17 in round 3, which took what I expected to be the top players out of contention in a second, with a quadruple bogey from Kat and 2 triples for Holland Handley. And then in the final round, Missy in contention gets a triple, moving her from 2nd place down to 6th place. And honestly, you really can't gauge how intense this hole is without seeing it in real life. It is a huge uphill shot. It is requiring basically the max amount of distance for a lot of these FPO players, and the wind is so swirly that you cannot predict where it's going to go. And not only that, but the landing is basically just circle 1, and so while it did require good accuracy, it made it so hard to get to the green. But apart from that, every single hole on this course felt just immaculate. Felt so fun to watch, and I never felt like there were any gimme holes. Honestly, there was probably not enough gimme holes. Scoring any birdies on this course requires a lot of good shots. So with that, let's talk about the person that did not have a lot of good shots today, Ohn. Going into the final round with a 3-stroke lead, me and everybody else basically assumed, oh yeah, Ohn's probably just gonna walk it in. But starting hole 1, she misses a very uncharacteristic birdie putt. I think it was maybe like 20-25 feet, and it was a little bit gusty, but you never expect that coming from Ohn. And you could tell something was just off about her game, which is crazy because she got a 10 under 10-25 second round, which included a 50-footer, 40-footer, and a bunch of circle's edge putts. So going from that to this final round felt so shocking. Going OB 4 times, carding 4 bogeys, missing 4 circle 1 putts, and not making a single circle 2 putt. But this really doesn't even tell the whole story. For the most part, I think Ohn's shots were like a little safe. She obviously doesn't have a lot of distance, which is required for a course like this. But the bigger thing was her lack of ability to hit lines and upshots. There was a couple of moments like hole 6 where she has a pretty easy upshot, but she hits an early tree, making it basically impossible, and she cards a par. And by hole 13, she remained even, and she finishes her round with 1 over. The sponsor of this video is Power Grip USA. I just want to say a big shout out to those that did use my coupon code WildRuns10. So if you want to get great plastic at a great price and get 10% off, use code WildRuns10 at checkout. They're a great team of people and will guarantee you a great experience. Guarantee you you'll find something you like. So with that, let's get back to how this insane tournament ended. So honestly, I think this is just one of those days where Ohn just doesn't have it. She has been so consistent week after week, having so many electric finishing rounds, but today it just wasn't there, and you could tell in her demeanor that she just wasn't locked in the way that you need to be to finish strong in the final round. So although she did end with a very nice birdie, she finishes in 4th place. Next up, Natalie Ryan played very consistent, made very few mistakes, hit the majority of C1 putts, and finishes in 2nd place. But then we move on to the top 2 contenders, Eliezra and Emily Weatherman. These are probably not 2 contenders you would normally think of, especially when you have names like Holland Handley, Missy Gannon, and Ohn Scoggins. But honestly, these 2, I think, teenagers were the best of the bunch almost the whole way through, never seeming to struggle on hole 17 in particular. But for Eliezra, the biggest thing that I noticed as far as critiquing is her inability to throw straight lines with distance. She obviously has amazing distance, but for a course like this that is primarily wooded, that was definitely the biggest shortcoming of her game. But much like Ohn, she dominated the second round with 8 under, making 10 for 11 from circle 1, and then finishes her final round with 11 for 13. And besides missing 7 circle 2 putts, she really seemed very confident in that final round. On hole 6 in particular, she had an upshot that put her right near the OB line, and she had to putt this very narrow line from about 40 feet. And me spectating, I just assumed there was no good line. But she jams it in the basket, which was her first birdie of the round, which is probably not what you want, especially in a final round where there are so many other names fighting for the win, but she really never seemed to let the moment get to her. I have filmed her in previous tournaments, and I feel like this final round jitters is something that does affect her game. But that was definitely not seen today, especially in the back half. Birdieing 14, 16, and 17. And if you're birdieing 17, your game is feeling pretty darn good. And both the 16 and 17 birdies were circle's edge putts. So despite going out of bounds on hole 18, she saves the par and finishes her round at 4 under, tying her for 2nd place. But the biggest thing that got to her game was hole 11. And I'm not entirely sure if this was a birdie or par putt, but whatever the case is, she misses this uphill putt, and then the comebacker rolls down the hill and she misses that comebacker, giving her a double bogey. And this was at a moment where I thought she definitely had a chance to take it down. So although she did fight very, very well towards the end, that double really put her behind, with 11 being such a very gettable birdie hole. But let's move on to the champion, Emily Weatherman. This is not a name that I've talked about all too much, but she has been in the mix a lot more times than you might guess, finishing 8th place at Portland Open, Beaver State Fling, Texas States, and a 3rd at DDO. So while this definitely may seem like a shocking win, overall I think this actually was pretty inevitable. And especially looking at her game today, it was lights out the whole way through. Before she even let go of the disc, I could tell, oh, this is gonna go exactly where she wants it. She has great power, had very consistently nose down drives, and overall just clean form on her putting and drives. So even though she was 5 strokes behind Ohn to start the day, after 11 holes, she was almost right there, carding 5 birdies, and definitely had potential to make even more with a couple of missed putts. And especially on hole 12 and 14, she had great drives that looked like it was an easy birdie, but she misses her circle 1 putts and takes a par on those. But honestly, a par on this course is absolutely fine. There were so many shocking bogeys that would keep popping up throughout the entire day, so shooting bogey free, it really was the name of the game, especially for FPO. But then we get to the final couple of holes. Hole 15 is one of those shots where honestly is not that hard of a hole, but it is so much more difficult as a mental obstacle to overcome than you might guess. With very tight OB left and right the entire way through, she threw the best looking drive, and their upshot put her within 15 feet of the basket, which was actually very close to how she shot 14 as well, with an amazing upshot that put her within like 20 feet of the basket. And she did actually miss that putt, but the drive was just so clean that I knew in that moment, okay, I need to follow this card because we are definitely going to get a chase card champion, assuming she does not choke 17-18. So with that birdie on 15, let's go to 17. And although she did walk up first to tee, even though she was not first to tee and then had to walk back, she honestly seemed chill the entire way through 17-18. And these holes are definitely gotcha holes. They will eat you alive if you have any ounce of doubt. And although she wasn't happy with her upshot on 17, it got to the circle and was around circle's edge, which is the most terrifying because you can definitely go OB, assuming the disc bounces off the basket and goes deep. She jams it in from 37 feet. And this is at a moment where she didn't even really have to run it. Like, it was getting a little tight where you don't automatically know people are going to birdie, but just an insane amount of confidence flowing from her. So with that, she finishes super strong on 18, honestly plays it pretty safe, with her first shot being a dead center straight shot, and the second one being a very nice turnover line that was a little bit right, but she could just pitch up for par and probably get the win. But she does not do that. She jams it in with the entire crowd watching her from 32 feet, even though I feel like it was probably a little bit further than that. So with that, she gets her first Elite Series win and finishes her final round with 1026 rated, which is nearly 100 points higher than her rating. And here's what she had to say.
Last chase card winner in the FPO division on the Disc Golf Pro Tour was in 2017. You just did that today at age 18 in your rookie season. How do you feel right now?
I don't know how I feel, honestly. It's kind of all just not hitting me yet, but I knew I could do it, and I came out here and I did it, and I'm really proud of myself. But I definitely knew that I could because I have the skills, I have the mindset, so I'm glad that I did, but I did not expect it at all.
And I definitely agree that she can just trust in her skills and confidence in the game. There were so many moments where I was like, oh yeah, she just has like perfect technique that leads to an easy birdie on so many of these holes. For other players, it felt just a lot more forced. Here, it was just like, oh yeah, hit the line, have an easy upshot, and card your birdie. So many other players were not able to do that. And for a windy round like this, finishing 8 under is just astounding. And I could not be more stoked for her. There were so many moments that I was like, please don't choke, because it was just so exciting to watch it play out. So I definitely expect to see more of her for the remainder of the season because she clearly has enough talent to fight for the win at a lot more events than you might guess. And just one side note that I found kind of fascinating, at the press conference before we even started recording, she literally asked Brian Earhart, why am I even here? Like, I'm not like anybody of importance or anything special. And I just find that so intriguing that this is her thought process. She does not think she's that good, but clearly in her form and execution, it was lights out in a way that nobody else was for the FPO division. So I just love that humble mentality, and I just had to point that out. So with that, let's go on to MPO. First up, I gotta give the biggest shout out to Calvin being just a vessel for Innova, coming straight from Europe, and he also scheduled Crokel Open. So he was gonna do 2 international flights in 1 week. He actually canceled Crokel, so I think he's going to Europe like next week or something, but basically 0 expectations for him to actually perform well, and he takes 7th place with a 900 to finish it. Just insane stuff from Calvin, and it really just just shows he just has it all. But another person that tied him that got their best finish of their entire career is Jaden Rye. Now, I've talked about this guy a little bit in the past, being a great player, but also one of the few dynamic sponsored players besides Rick. And with his best finish this year being 34th at Beaver State, you do not expect a 7th place finish from a 1,004 rated player. He finishes his final round with 1058 rated. And also a quick shout out before we get to the main contenders, Matty-O takes down 2nd place. Felt like kind of he lucked into it a little bit because some other contenders really fell off in the last couple of holes, but it really goes to show that Matty-O is just one of the most consistent players, and it doesn't matter what course, week after week, he will continue to fight for a podium finish, and hopefully some more wins as well, knocking down 14 for 14 from circle 1. But the real battle was AB versus Hammis versus Buhr. And right off the start, I thought, okay, Gannon Buhr can officially win this going 5 through 5. But with a significant delay between chase and lead card, that came to a crushing halt because AB went 7 for 7. Absolutely lights out the entire stretch of the front 9. Which included a 41-foot par save on hole 8, which to me means maybe we should have thrown that roller that Simon threw. And so even though Hammis did start with a 2-stroke lead against AB, that lead just kept getting chipped away hole after hole. And although Adam did end the front 9 with the turkey, AB followed that up with 4 straight birdies of his own. But Adam did not give up one bit with an amazing par save on hole 11, which on coverage doesn't look that crazy, but look at my perspective, it is an insanely high incline shot that could easily roll right back down if he misses it. And you could tell Adam's vibes were getting a little bit close to being tilted, but he stayed locked in for the most part. But speaking of locked in, Buhr on chase card was going on fire, who only had 2 pars after that hole 13 stretch, with the rest being birdies. And since lead card was kind of crazy, I was mainly following chase card, and I knew Gannon Buhr could take this down. And he follows hole 13 up with a birdie, birdie, birdie. And I think this is probably not true, but according to the scoring, which we have to believe is true, there were 10 putts from 26 feet. So every one of these C1 putts were not gimme putts by any means. But to me, the defining moment for his entire round was hole 15. His upshot goes a little deep and you're like, okay, he's gonna get a par, that's fine. There's still room to make it up. But through the trees and the brush, again, looking at my angle, you can really get a vibe for how pitched off he truly was. He jams it in. And then we move on to hole 16, pretty routine shot for him. He gets the easy birdie, and you can tell how much this shot meant to him. But checking scores, he was still not in first. 14 down did not put him at first place. Absolutely insane. So before we see how lead card finished, let's talk about hole 17. Hitting an early tree, making it a basically par at best situation. But on his upshot, it does go out of bounds, leading to a devastating double bogey, which again, I want to reiterate, he was 14 under up to this point, only getting par on 2 holes. But him and everybody else knew at that moment it was basically a done deal. He was not going to secure the win, even though he got so close from chase card, which would have been an insane chase card champion for MPO and FPO. But ultimately that did not happen, so let's go to lead card. AB takes down the birdie on 15, and it felt like Adam was kind of losing his grip, missing a circle 1 putt. And then on hole 16, AB takes a par, which is like effectively losing a stroke on the field because this is such a gettable birdie. But for Adam, he takes an early OB, turning a gotta get birdie to a bogey. So at this point, it basically felt like if AB does not choke, he will secure the win. And especially with Adam taking a double on 17, even though AB's upshot did go out of bounds, he cards a bogey and finishes his tournament with 30 under, securing his 4th Elite Series win of the year.
I mean, it's just, it all happened so fast and I don't even know if I can even believe it right now. I mean, it was a dream come true. We've been talking about doing this for years and years, and then I just know this isn't going to be the last one.
Absolute insanity. There was so much confidence coming from AB. You can just tell when he's in the flow state, there's no one that's going to touch him. And I really thought Gannon had the potential to do it, but it just was not quite the case for him. But all in all, such a good return to form for Hammis. We have not seen him really contend for a win in such a long time. Honestly, I think it was last year for Portland Open. So it's great to see him fight, and especially fighting against his friend AB. Very cool to witness. But you can definitely tell the top contenders right now are hands down AB versus Buhr. They're so locked in that when they are battling, it is basically birdie or die. There are no holes they cannot capture a birdie on, and it seems like there are no putts that they can miss. So with that, I'm so excited to get to Europe, and a major shout out to everybody that came up to me this past weekend. It was probably the most amount of love I received in any particular event, so I really appreciate that. It really just meant so much to me because I do work so hard on this, and I love to see that people actually do watch and they do care. So with that, be sure to check out powergripusa.com and get some amazing discs at a great price. And since I have some truly epic videos coming up, you do not want to miss them, so click that subscribe button. And with that, Wild Run signing out. Peace.
Beth at 69. I just told myself, you got to will this one in there. Whatever you have, just will it in there.
This man is unbelievable. This is what athletes live for. This is the moment.